Loch Nangai. Tales of the Gaels. If I may, dear listener, I would like to speak unto you of tales born from an ancient and mountainous land, where the wild waves of the mighty Atlantic Ocean swell upon her shores, unforgiving in their perpetual smashing and crashing of cold rocks. All around her western seaboard lie scattered in their magnificence her many islands flung upon the ocean like the most exquisite jewels of immeasurable grandness and beauty. Within her domain of lofty peaks and savage heath, her countless animals and narrowed forests speak unto the heart of the sacredness, of the tenderness of life's mysteries, spoken of from the lips of poets and lonely wayfaring pilgrims down through the countless crooked ages. The land of which I speak, I hear the myriad of questions say, was once known far and wide across her realm by her children as Alpa, Cheer and Belnarst. For those that have no knowledge of her old tongue, nor of the rhythm and deftness of her language and song, this word Alpa has become recognised all the world over in the great English language of today as Scotland. I am quite certain, dear listener, that at some point in your own journey through life's bewilderment, that you will have heard of Scotland and her venerable tale, whether it be through the peaty taste of her whisky, the shrill of her bagpipes, or through the heroic exploits of one of her brave freedom fighters, known as William Wallace. Her saga will have touched you in some way, albeit knowingly or unknowingly. For her greater part, as far as my own humble understanding has made me aware, there appears to be a forgotten verse in her epic saga, a mighty and resounding verse that unto me seems to be washed away like the turning of tides and unspoken of by her many sons and daughters spread in great numbers across the globe. If I were to say unto you the words, the Gael, or the Gael, would your ears decipher that running sound of vowels and consonants as an intelligible word for a race of people whose name is that of the same meaning as a Scottish person? Perhaps, in my ignorance, I would be wrong to suppose that translation would be required. But, as I relayed earlier in this tale, that it is, unto my own often foolish awareness, that there appears to be, most evidently, a missing verse, a shattered song, and an unheard lament of a magnificent people who called themselves the Gael. Yes, dear listener, deep is her boundless lake, wide her craggy coastline, and high and stretching is her towering zenith. And it is with this stream of thought and pondering I will attempt to relay unto you tales, although there are many more qualified than myself to converse in such matters, with a respectful heart and diligent stroking of pen that may or may not dispel darkness from the light, for to scarper the shadows of ignorance from the long-established halls of learning in relation to the story of Alpa, Scotland. Deep is the sighing that bellows from my chest at this moment, but if can be cast aside my constraints of fear and anxiety and flung tumbling upon the ground, would you lend your ear and come with me on an adventure into the land of lofty pine trees and cascading waterfalls, where charms and curious incantations were once customary among her clans? Clans that bore the broadsword and dagger, clans where the light-hearted and jovial women spun their threads to the rhythm of their porstabil mouth music. Clans most well acquainted with their landscape and landlore, passed from generation to generation down through many faded years in ancient oral tradition. Clans that knew of the spiritual matters of nature. Clans that knew of the great destruction and sadness which led to their terrible demise. It may be appropriate at this time to inform the listener of the origins of the word clan, for this word has a deeper and different meaning in the intricate beauties of the Gaelic language. For the word clown has been carried over from the Gaelic language into the universal English tongue of today. The word clown, clan, simply bears the meaning of children. Perhaps all things under the great rolling sun have their allocated part to play in this drama we call life. For change can often come both silently and creeping. Sometimes she comes with the unbeatable blast of the tempest's howl. These are matters of discussion involving conversations regarding the timeless topic of philosophy, superstition, theory and faith. Although all these things foresaid were central to the Gaels of Scotland, as they were and still are to the great human family cast upon the earth, I will endeavour to leave these matters aside, as time is but at our calling. For were one to live for 1,000 years, the endless stories, the innumerable songs, and the intelligent use of language of the Gael could not be fully learned, as that wellspring seems to eternally sprout, revealing a boundless reservoir of knowledge, of chapter and verse. So will you not come away with me, O ardent seeker? Should you permit, let me guide your little boat across an abandoned sea, where the wailing of pipes awaits your welcome, echoing their graces and airs among the lofty mountain passes of old. Such an undertaking as to attempt the beginning of an ageless story brings this here reciter of tales to a most difficult decision as to where to set forth from on our voyage. For to decide this matter, of which I have for a long time now pondered, I must refer to one of the countless Gaelic proverbs, which says, Cur mai ravanogs hecagun cheek mas. This here adage would render into the English language as, put good on an omen, and perhaps good will come out of it. The omen that I speak of lies in a clear, not far off horizon. For the withering coat of winter has begun to shed her garments, making way for the many coloured petals of spring, who now are beginning to climb from their earthen slumber, for to bare their face to the climbing of the sun. Spring, not short in their abundance, are the appraisals of the mystery of rebirth amongst the Gaels of days gone past. This, most evidently, is striking to any student or reader of the magical lore of the Highlands of Scotland and her people. But this time of year, which is perhaps not known by many, also gives remembrance to a different story. A story that does not so kindly relate to the revealing of Mother Nature and all of her green flowing locks of marvels and majesty. This story, of which I will attempt to relate something of, is one of sadness and anguish that causes the drawing of breath in tightly manner for one to let out the uneasiness of the emotions felt by the heirs of woeful tale. The tale of which I speak is one when the sun began to set on an ancient civilization that would make way for to give birth to an empire that would stretch her arms over much of the known earth. This all came to be in the aftermath of the last battle fought on Scottish soil, a place which is now frequented by the pipes of ghosts and their eerie notes upon the ceaseless breeze that roams there, a place that is known in the weighty books of history as Culloden. For those unacquainted with this infamous battle, I would now refer you to take upon yourself the undertaking of abundant reading found in the ocean of countless books written in this subject. For time she is here a pecking on my shoulder, debilitating my ability to immerse myself more fully into this bounteous matter at hand. For to paint a quick brushstroke across the canvas of imagination is almost a near impossible feat to this here storyteller. But dap and swish my brush I will onto her template. If it is at all possible, I will perhaps be able to reveal something unknown to you in these minuscule splashes and droplets of the legend of Cherlochog Stuart, Prunsen and Gael, Bonnie Prince Charlie, the Prince of the Gaels. High up in the wild moorlands of Inverness-shire, above Loch Ashie, the lake of the ferry crossing or deliverance, lies a great rolling ridge that bears the name of Druimashi. This obscure word has been carried over into English as Dramossy Moor, which is said to mean the ridge of the hill above the lake of the ferry crossing, or deliverance. Why do I speak of this for said place name? For this is one of the names which Culloden battlefield is known in the Gaelic language. The name Culloden itself is another anglicised spelling of the Gaelic term Culloden, which depicts a nook where straw or hay is grown. An alternative translation from the older informants of the area in discussion to this place name is Culloden, which would render as the nook of the pool or of the marsh. The second of these examples linguistically makes sense, but it may be a matter of interest that the first term, Culloden, is still used today by the remaining Gaelic speakers of the Highlands and Islands when referring to the famous battle. This here humble reciter of old lore has heard numerous tales from many of the older inhabitants of Scotland concerning the Battle of Culloden. One account, however, has forever remained close to my attention, which may or may not bear testament to the insight of the temperament found among the ancient Highlanders. It is said that the proverb, Corrum na Féin, was called for from the ranks of the Seamasich, the Jacobites, on the battlefield that day on the 16th of April 1746. This old Highland adage depicts the calling for fair play or equal opportunity. The broadsword and the dagger were the instruments of war used by the Gaelic clans for such business. It was to appear to them that day that their plight for fair play would not be heard, as it is said that the battle, or the rout, was over in 20 minutes due to the mass of shrieking gunfire and cannons which dissipated their formation and scattered their hopes and dreams to the crying of the four winds. What was to follow in the aftermath of the last battle fought on Scottish soil was the beginning of the everlasting sunset upon the civilisation who called themselves a Gael, the Gaels. Cerlachog Stuart, bonny Prince Charlie, was born in Rome beneath the forlorn shadows of great stone and marble towers, far away from the mountainous realm of his ancient forefathers. His birth was not unheard of in the wild lands of floods and giants, for it is recorded in song by many of the bards at this time that the arrival of the prince had come with a good omen, as it was said that a newborn star had been spotted in the night sky. The epic verse, Or in vrij friumse Charlie, the song upon the birth of Prince Charlie, records this event in vivid detail by the poet Ruairi Maclean. Harúnach vrij mar ha, tors fís agus fasnach fír, gur mach ra hene and drast, gur arn and gras gardien. Already does birth a new star give a message and omen true, that a son of fortune now comes from the Father of grace for our guard. From the warmth of the cradle to the cold depths of the grave, stories and mystery yet surround the life of Prince Charlie, from the legend of the 7 boatmen of Moidart to his wanderings with the heroine Flory Nichrew Lichkanui Shog, or Flora MacDonald, as she's perhaps better known. Already too has been hinted of the endless literature concerning the adventure and tragedy of the Aramach and Seamasich, the Jacobite rebellion. For this speaker to dive into that ocean of knowledge, so well catered for by the written hand, I must refrain myself from the temptation of my tongue to ramble and drift upon those waters, discarding the unstoppable hands of time. But leave you, I will, this here story, a tale that I would imagine is not so well famed among the collectors of Highland sagas and lore. This is a most peculiar tale of a travelling merchant named Ruairi Maclean, Roderick Mackenzie, whom, were it not for his bravery and loyalty, Prince Charlie would never have evaded his pursuing enemies among the land of sharp peaks and peat-stained lochs before his parting exile to France. Ruairi, the son of a blacksmith from Edinburgh who had fought at Culloden, it is said, was a man who bore a most striking resemblance to the appearance of the prince. after being involved in a fight with a band of marauding redcoats in Glenmorrison, which lies not far as the crow flies from the mystical Isle of Skye. Ruairi, before he was to be beheaded by his enemies, is said to have screamed out the words, "Aleuterin, Varishum Prunse, Varishum Prunse. Rascals, you've killed the prince. Rascals, you've killed the prince." To this day, there stands a memorial stone commemorating that sad ending of the blacksmith's son from Edinburgh, whose loyalty led to the Hanoverian throne believing that the son of the displaced king in France, James Stuart, had been killed. This act of bravery and quick-wittedness enabled the prince somewhat considerably to place distance and confusion among the parties of redcoats who scoured the valleys and islands seeking their bounty. There was a price of £30,000 placed on the head of the Prince of the Gaels for his capture. It is a timeless and fitting testament of the honour of the men and women of the Highlands and Islands that none sought to claim this prize of gold. The clansmen and clanswomen descended to the spot of poor Ruairi's misfortune and buried his headless body near the old road at Kelnacroch, Hillhead. There among the hawthorn and oak tree in the braes of Glenmorrison babbles a little streamlet which bears the name Ceichenachanich, the merchant's burn. Like that streamlet that flows there, carrying the waters from the mountain passes into eternity, she will also carry the memory of Ruairi Maclean, the travelling merchant who helped to save the life of bonny Prince Charlie. Charlie returned to the shores of Britain no fewer than 60 times after Culloden, as far as this here storyteller has been informed. There are many tales that tell of secret meetings in ancient bustling taverns and inns across the land, meetings held by displaced Jacobites in hope of another uprising. But for now, dear listener, we must move on from the realms of a time now long departed. For it is upon me at this moment to wish you good health and a warm goodbye, or as we say here in that old tongue of the Gael, Swan lever in a.